In the year 2005, a group of scientists conducted a groundbreaking experiment. They genetically modified a virus, hoping it would be the cure for cancer. At first, the results were promising. The virus caused no harm. It simply did what it was designed to do. But as time passed, something changed. The virus began to mutate, slowly, silently, and it wasn't long before the entire human race was threatened. What was once a miracle turned into mankind's greatest mistake. Within 3 years, the world was devastated, cities abandoned, streets silent, humanity brought to its knees. But there were a few survivors, people who were naturally immune, and one of them was Robert Neville. We meet Robert in what's left of New York City, a man roaming the empty streets with only his loyal dog Sam by his side. Today, Robert is out hunting. His target? A herd of deer sprinting through the desolate streets of Manhattan. As he speeds down the road in his modified car, one of the deer runs across unexpectedly, causing him to swerve and crash into a pile of abandoned vehicles. Robert quickly grabs his rifle and begins pursuing them on foot through the ghostly remains of the city. He turns into a narrow alleyway, quiet, eerily still, and spots a lone deer separated from its herd. He raises his gun, aims, but before he can fire, a lion leaps out of the shadows and takes the deer down in an instant. Robert freezes as the lion's entire pride emerges behind it. He could shoot, but he doesn't. He knows they're just surviving, like him. As dusk begins to fall, Robert makes his way back home. He carefully sprinkles chemicals on the front steps, a daily ritual for safety, then heads inside and starts preparing his dinner. As darkness consumes the city, Robert switches off every light, bolts every door and window, and slips into silence. The night in New York isn't just dark, it's haunted. Terrifying growls and unearthly howls begin to echo through the streets, monstrous sounds that pierce the silence like screams from another world. Robert and Sam huddle together in the bathtub, shivering in fear. His eyes close. A memory rushes in. Flashback. It's 3 years earlier. Chaos fills the streets as the government orders the evacuation of New York. Robert pleads with his wife to take their daughter and leave, but she refuses. Not without him. They argue. Emotions run high. And then, crash! Their car collides. The flashback ends as Robert jolts awake. Morning has come and the horrifying noises have faded into silence once more. He works out, maintaining both his strength and his sanity, then heads into his secret underground lab, hidden beneath his home. This is where he spends most of his days. Here, Robert is trying to create a cure. He is immune, so he uses his own blood to create a serum. One by one, he injects it into infected lab rats, watching closely, hoping. But day after day, result after result, nothing changes. Except today. Today, one of the rats shows signs of response. That one lab rat, infected but slowly recovering, gave Robert his first real hope in years. Its skin tone began to return to normal. For the first time, he believed the cure might be possible. Clinging to that optimism, Robert and Sam headed out again, this time to an abandoned mall, scavenging for supplies. Afterward, Robert made his way to the harbor. As he had done every single day for the last 3 years, he used the port's radio system to broadcast a message to the world. If anyone's out there, I'm here, every day at noon. You're not alone. But still, no one ever responded. Just then, while watching the stillness of the streets, Robert spotted a deer sprinting by. Instinct took over, and the hunt began again. Sam chased it through the empty city while Robert followed close behind. The deer darted into a dark, crumbling building, and Sam went in after it. Robert froze. He knew what lived in those shadows. These weren't just empty ruins. They were the nesting grounds of the infected, the Dark Seekers. Once human, they were now monstrous, zombie-like creatures who lived only in darkness. And entering their lair could mean death, but Robert had no choice. Sam was in there. Cautiously, he stepped inside, flashlight shaking in his hand. The building groaned with each step, eerie noises echoing from every corner. Shadows moved. The air was thick with tension. Suddenly, something on the floor, a mutilated animal's face. Robert's heart stopped, but it wasn't Sam. It was just a dead deer. He took a deep breath and pushed forward until he opened a door and found himself face to face with a cluster of dark seekers. Their bodies were motionless, facing the wall. They hadn't noticed him. He held his breath, covering the flashlight. In silence, he backed away and slipped into another room. And there, under a table, was Sam, terrified, shaking, unwilling to move. Robert whispered, urging him to come out, but Sam refused. Something had him frozen in fear. And then, a low growl. From the shadows behind them, a dark seeker leaped. Robert fired instantly, unloading round after round into the creature. He grabbed Sam and ran, but the gunfire had already alerted the others. More howls, more creatures charging. "Go!" he shouted. Sam darted through a small opening and escaped, but one dark seeker caught Robert mid-run, slamming him to the ground. Thinking fast, Robert shattered a nearby window, letting in the daylight. The monster screamed, its skin blistering, burning in the sun's rays. It convulsed violently and died. Robert and Sam had barely made it out alive, but he wasn't done. He needed a test subject for his new serum. So that night, he set a trap. At the entrance of the Darkseeker's den, he rigged a snare and placed the corpse of the dead infected creature as bait, coated with drops of his own blood. Sure enough, the scent worked. One of them, a female Darkseeker, fell into the trap. As Robert prepared to extract her, something unexpected happened. Another Darkseeker emerged from the shadows. Her mate, perhaps? He didn't attack, but he stared directly at Robert, a look of rage, of awareness. It was brief but undeniable. Then, blocked by the daylight, he retreated. That night, Robert brought the female back to his lab. She had a butterfly tattoo on her shoulder. He sedated her heavily and carefully injected her with the experimental serum. He waited, but nothing happened. No change, no healing, just silence. Disappointment crushed him, but he didn't give up. The next morning, as always, he set out again, hoping, praying that someone, anyone, might respond to his call. He broadcasted the message once more and waited. Then, just as he was about to leave the port, he saw something. Someone. In the middle of the street, Robert spotted what looked like a man standing still, facing away. Surprised, he drove closer. But as he approached, he realized it wasn't a person at all. It was a mannequin. That was strange. Robert had never seen it there before. Who put it there? Cautiously, he fired a warning shot, checking for traps. Nothing happened. So he inched closer. The mannequin was surrounded by water puddles, and the moment Robert stepped into the water, snap! A trap sprung up around his legs. He was yanked into the air, hanging upside down, ensnared by a snare trap exactly like the ones he used to catch Darkseekers. Someone, or something, had turned his own method against him. Then, darkness. He blacked out from the impact. Sometime later, his wristwatch alarm jolted him awake. Sunset was near, minutes away. His dog Sam barked frantically toward the building, sensing something inside. Robert reached into his pocket. Thankfully, he still had his knife. Struggling, he managed to cut himself free and fell to the ground. But as he landed, the knife stabbed into his leg. He screamed in pain, but he had no time to waste. Dragging himself, he crawled toward the car. And then, growls from the shadows. Something was coming. He shouted at Sam to run, and limped as fast as he could to safety. But the sun had just dipped below the horizon, and from the darkness emerged a furious Darkseeker with infected dogs snarling at its side. It released them. The creatures sprinted toward Robert. One lunged, but Sam intercepted it just in time, saving Robert. Another beast pounced. Robert grabbed his rifle from the car and took it down. A third one came charging. Just as it was about to sink its teeth into Robert, Sam leapt again and protected his master. But this time, Sam was bitten. Robert raced home, cradling his wounded companion. Deep down, he knew what the bite meant. Sam had been infected. Still, he clung to hope. He injected the dog with his experimental serum, and then sat with him, like a father holding his child. But the serum didn't work. Sam began to change, growling, snarling, his eyes turning wild. Robert was devastated. He couldn't let Sam turn into a monster. With a trembling hand and a heavy heart, he put his best friend to rest. The next morning, he buried Sam with tears in his eyes. That loss shattered something inside him. And now, Robert wanted revenge. That night, he set a trap, not to capture, but to destroy. At the port, he sat in the open, a decoy mannequin in his place. Hiding inside his SUV, he waited. As night fell, the Darkseekers took the bait. They charged. Robert hit the gas, plowing through them, but there were too many. They overwhelmed the vehicle, flipping it into the harbor. The impact left Robert badly injured. One Darkseeker moved in to finish him off, but then, blinding light, the creatures shrieked and scattered. It was a rescue. A woman pulled Robert into her vehicle and drove away. On the road, she asked where he lived. He gave her his address and passed out. When Robert woke up, it was morning. He was home, his wounds stitched. From the kitchen, he heard voices. Gun in hand, he walked in, only to see the woman who saved him and a young boy. He lowered the gun. The woman introduced herself as Anna and the boy as Ethan. They had traveled all the way from Maryland after hearing Robert's radio transmission. She explained that they had arrived at the port the previous day and had waited, hoping to find him. Anna told him they were headed to Vermont, one of the last known safe zones where other immune survivors had gathered. But Robert dismissed it. "There are no safe zones," he said bitterly. "There's no one left, just monsters." Anna tried to reason with him. "This virus can't survive cold. The mountains protect the survivors. There is still hope." But Robert stormed off to his room, overwhelmed. Later, calmer, he returned and apologized for his outburst. He asked how they had survived this long. Anna shared her story. They had hidden on a boat with other immune survivors. But one day, Dark Seekers attacked. Only she and Ethan escaped. Their only goal now was to reach the safe zone. Since it was too late in the day to travel, they decided to wait until morning. But Robert wasn't going anywhere. "This is my city," he said, "and I'm going to fix it. I will find a cure." Anna didn't argue. Later, he took Anna and Ethan back to the place where the Dark Seekers had set the trap for him. Seeing it again, Robert was stunned. These creatures weren't just reacting, they were thinking. They used tactics, emotion. "Maybe they're evolving," Anna said softly. They then walked to a pool where Ethan took a bath. Robert smiled. It was the first time he felt human in years. As they played, Ethan shivered and said, "This water's freezing." That one sentence sparked something in Robert's mind. He raced back to his lab. He placed the female Dark Seeker, his test subject, into a refrigerated chamber and remembered what Anna had told him. Robert suddenly recalled what Anna had told him. The virus couldn't survive in the cold. Acting on a spark of hope, he cooled the female Dark Seeker's body temperature using ice and then injected her with his experimental vaccine. This time, something incredible began to happen. The vaccine slowly started to take effect. As Robert observed the changes, Anna entered the lab and noticed photographs of all the Dark Seekers Robert had experimented on. She asked about them, and he solemnly explained that all of them had died during testing. Later that evening, Robert gently tucked Ethan into a room that once belonged to his daughter. As the sun began to set, he locked up every window and door in the house. Anna then gently brought up the safe zone once again. "It would have made me happy if you came with us," she said softly. But Robert snapped, frustrated. "How can you be so sure there's a survivor colony out there? Who told you that?" he demanded. Anna, calm and sincere, replied, "God did." She explained that it was divine guidance that made her turn on the radio and hear his message, that it was God who led her to Robert in time to save his life. "If you just listen," she said, "you'll hear him too. He'll tell you what to do." But this only made Robert angrier. He shouted, "There is no God. This isn't divine will. This is a man-made disaster, and now we must fix it to save what's left of humanity." Just as his voice echoed through the house, they heard crashing noises from outside. Alarmed, Robert turned to Anna. "When you brought me here, was it already night?" She hesitated before replying, "You were bleeding badly. I had no choice." A chill ran through Robert's body. He realized that the Dark Seekers must have followed his blood scent to the house. He rushed to the window, and there they were, dozens of them, charging straight toward the house. Anna ran to Ethan's room while Robert sprang into defense mode, activating powerful floodlights around the perimeter. But the Dark Seekers were relentless. They plowed through the light, undeterred by the pain. Robert grabbed a remote control and prepared for the final confrontation. He had rigged explosives outside for just such an invasion. Robert didn't waste a second. He triggered the explosives he had rigged outside. A massive blast ripped through the area. Several Dark Seekers were obliterated, their limbs scattered in every direction. But the explosion also weakened the structural integrity of his own house. Still, Robert didn't care. He rushed toward the room where Anna and Ethan had taken shelter. Reaching the upper floor, he discovered a Dark Seeker had already broken in and was tearing through the roof to make way for the others. Anna and Ethan, terrified, were hiding under a cupboard. But then Ethan let out a scream of fear. The Seeker heard it and turned toward them. But just in time, Robert fired and took it down. When he looked outside, more Dark Seekers were approaching the house, led by the very one who had seen Robert capture one of their own. The rage in its eyes was unmistakable. Robert rushed Anna and Ethan into his underground lab and sealed the doors. Inside, to his surprise, the female Dark Seeker they had experimented on was showing signs of recovery. His vaccine was finally working. But before they could celebrate, the Dark Seekers breached the basement and stormed the lab. Robert locked himself, Anna, and Ethan inside a reinforced glass chamber. It was strong, but the Dark Seekers were in a frenzy, battering the glass with brutal force. Death seemed inevitable. Robert tried to reason with them, shouting, "I can cure you! I have the vaccine." But the Dark Seekers wouldn't listen. Their leader stepped forward. He rammed his skull into the glass repeatedly until cracks began to form. Just before it shattered, the leader paused. Then, slowly, he traced the shape of a butterfly on the glass, a symbol Robert had seen before, tattooed on the female Dark Seeker's arm. It was then he understood. They weren't just monsters. They felt, they remembered, they loved. He lowered his weapon and gently removed the medical equipment from the unconscious Seeker's body. Her transformation had begun. She was healing. Still unconscious from the sedative, she stirred faintly. Robert told Anna to open the chamber. She hesitated, terrified. "What are you doing?" she asked. "Trust me," he said. Anna opened the door, and Robert returned the female Seeker to her people. He gave her an injection to awaken her, and as she opened her eyes, something profound shifted in the room. In that moment, Robert saw the truth. These creatures weren't mindless zombies. They were evolving, capable of thought, emotion, even compassion. To them, he was the monster, He had kidnapped, tortured, and killed their kind under the guise of science. The horror in his eyes turned to regret. He stepped back, looked into the eyes of the Seeker leader, and with his heart wide open, he apologized. Sincerely, deeply, the Dark Seekers accepted his gesture. They spared his life, gathered their own, and disappeared into the night. Now, with the truth revealed and the first successful vaccine in hand, Robert no longer saw them as enemies. He, Anna, and Ethan set off on a new journey to find the remaining survivors and rebuild the world not just for humans, but for a new species too. So, what would you have done if you were in Robert's place? Would you have kept fighting or tried to understand the enemy? Tell us your thoughts in the comments below. And do you believe there are more survivors out there? If you enjoyed this gripping tale of survival, sacrifice, and redemption, like the video, subscribe to our channel, and hit the bell icon to never miss our next sci-fi thriller recap. This was Survival Recap, and we'll meet you again in another world, another story, another fight for humanity. Until then, stay curious,